Alright guys, this is my lightsaber video. We're going to try this second time here. Bear with me, I'm going to try to get my phone to not fall. I haven't really rehearsed this or anything, so it kind of is what it is. Bear with me 1 second, there we go. Alright, so these are the two lightsabers that I made for my son for his birthday. I just gave them to him today. He's 14. These were all made out of stuff you can find at the hardware store and relatively inexpensively. As you can see, they light up nicely. This one is my attempt at making a dark saber blade. It's not perfect, but it does what it needs to. I also made blue, orange, and white because that's the color of pipe I could get. Turn the light back on here. Actually, I'm going to turn this off for a second. So, light these up. White lights up really nicely. There's your blue and your orange. Okay, so other than the flashlight that powers these things, these are relatively inexpensive to make. So take this apart and I'll explain to you what I did here quick. All of this comes down pretty easily. So this was basically a bathroom sink pop-up drain assembly I picked up at Home Depot for about a little under $8. It is plastic. There are metal ones, but they're really heavy, and it didn't seem like a good idea to give to my kid, so this is pretty much how it comes. It's got this ring on it here, and this piece, and there's a couple extra pieces I got rid of. The other thing, this is not part of it here. This is a heat shrink tubing, very large heat shrink tubing that I picked up at Home Depot. No, I did not. I got that at Lowe's. It was a 6-inch piece. It's very rigid. It's got some kind of adhesive on the inside, so when you melt it, it will stick. So give you a nice grip. This was like $6 for, you know, the 6-inch piece. I cut it in half. But basically, there's a rubber ring here, and this ring here, and there's just twists on and off. There's threads on. So obviously I got two of these because I made two lightsabers. I wanted them to be a little different. So initially I was going to wire up a battery pack and some LEDs and a bunch of stuff, and then I discovered this flashlight that I had worked perfectly for this. This is a Rubin 1200 lumen USB rechargeable flashlight. So right on the end here, it's got a micro USB port that'll focus, and the button to turn it on. So all I did was, and it fits in here pretty nicely. It's a little loose at the top, but it tapers as it goes down. So I wrapped this with electrical tape, 2 or 3 wraps, and just drop it in. And it'll just kind of barely stick out the bottom a little bit. And then I use the blade to push it down to about there. I like it turned a little bit. So I wanted to dress it up a little bit, so I 3D printed this part. This is unnecessary. You don't need to do that, but if you have access to a 3D printer, you have a lot of options. This just friction fits over the flashlight, just to give you something more to grab a hold of. And you can still access the charging port and the button to turn it on. And it's flashing because it needs charged. I designed this piece also and 3D printed it just to cover up the pipe threads. I didn't want them to be visible. Did want to keep this open though, because this allows you to see the blade through the hole here. And when you turn it on, it lights up. So I designed this so that these pieces here, this is a Z from my son Zach. You see it's got a hole cut in it, so it goes on here. And you line it up, and that way it lines up with the hole underneath. So when you push the blade in, turn it on, it will glow whatever color blade you have in there. And like I said, obviously the blades are removable. These are made out of PEX pipe. And if you couldn't tell already, these are the colors you can get it in at Home Depot. I get a 5-foot piece for $3 something. I think the orange only comes in 10-foot sections. It was like $7 and some change. There are 3/4 inch CPVC couplers on each one. I ended up getting 2. These were like 33 cents a piece. This is just a chunk of one that I cut off, like cut that much of it off, slid it up on here and glued it on, wrapped it a couple times in electrical tape. This is glued on with PVC cement, and then I drilled a hole to match the size of these thumb screws that I found. I don't know where you get these. I had these in a drawer, they just worked out perfectly. So I just drilled a hole so that these would thread into it. And the way that works, you push this down here so that the hole lines up at the top, push it until it's centered, and then this thumb screw will go in here and just twist it a couple times till it's tight, and then I put this ring back on. Actually, I 3D printed this little button to fill in the hole, and then this just threads back on. And that just kind of fills it in. Has the same little Z logo. It looks like the paint's wearing off a little bit. He's been playing with it all day. And then that way the blade's secure. It won't go flying out when you swing it around. For the grip, like I said, it was heat shrink tube and some rubber O-rings. I put 2 here, 2 here, put the heat shrink over, hit it with a heat gun until it melted down, and just gets you a nice solid grip. The blade at the end has a rubber clear like cap you'd put on like a chair leg or something, and inside it is a 3/4 inch mirror, and this is just hot glued on the inside here and then pressed in and super glued onto the end of the pipe, and that reflects the light back down the blade and helps keep it brighter than it would be without it. So that's that one. This one here I wanted to be a little different. Still start off the exact same piece of pipe. I just wanted it to look a little differently, so here's a rubber gasket or something I picked up at Home Depot. This piece here I 3D printed just to cover up the pipe threads. I put the washer on in a different position, and then I took a piece of PVC pipe, like I think 1.5 inches, I think 1.5 inch PVC pipe, cut it at a 45-degree angle, and then I measured where all these little pieces would fit in, notched it out, and then had to grind out the inside with a Dremel so that it would press onto here, and then just glued it in place. Hit it with some duplicolor vinyl dye. Stuff you can pick up at the auto parts store. It's not cheap, it's like $7 or $8 a can, but it works really, really well. It covers very nicely, and it adheres to PVC really well. There's like 2 coats on there, and it it'll scratch off if you try, but it stays on pretty well. This is a 1-inch PVC coupler, I believe. And then this is a threaded cap for a bathroom sink drain or something I picked up also at Lowe's or Home Depot or something. Kind of ground out the inside of it with a Dremel sanding disc and then stuck it on here. And this is just friction fit on. I'm not going to pull it off right now, but there's some electrical tape around this part, and then it just pressed on till it stayed. These are just some O-rings just to give you some grip, and this is a cap that I 3D printed. I'm probably going to change this. It's okay, but it kind of gets in the way. And then same thing here, thumb screw, pull the blade out, and it looks like that one came apart. So I might not have got enough glue on that one. And this is a trial thing here. I've not done this yet, so there's the other flashlight. So obviously this is going to need to be glued back on here, but you get the idea. My kids have been smashing these together all day, so it's a nice thing about this is it's cheap. So if they break something or something comes apart, you can fix it. This was my attempt at a dark saber. So I hit this. This is just a white piece of pipe, PEX pipe. I sprayed it all with black vinyl dye, and then took a razor blade and just scratched some of it off. And it was a little washed out at first, so I just sprayed the whole thing black again and did it again. I did that like 3 or 4 times until I got a nice deep black. When the light was on, it still stays pretty black, and you can see the white shines through. And there's just some places where it's not quite as bright shining through as the other layers on there. He told me he wanted red. I initially made red and blue, but when I came down to it, it's like, well, I wanted to try this dark saber blade, and then I saw how well the white lit up, so I decided to go with that. And then I thought, well, there's only one more color left, so I'll just get an orange one too. And the white and orange ended up being his 2 favorites now, so that worked out, I guess. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Anybody could make these very easily with very minimal tools. Like I said, the only thing I couldn't pick up at the Home Depot were these thumb screws, and I'm sure you could find something similar there. They might even sell these there. I have no idea. I've had these for decades. I have no idea where they came from. And you can kind of customize it to be your own style. You can kind of do what you want with it. Like I said, there's not a whole lot to these. They're relatively cost effective. I mean, this is just a scrap of pipe I had lying around. And the 3D printed stuff, obviously, if you don't have access to a printer, could be a little bit of a challenge, but other than that, you know, you can kind of do what you want, and you don't have to use a printer. You can just find some cool looking plumbing stuff and cut it and make it the way you want it. This one has very little 3D printed stuff on. And like I said, I did add this piece, but it's probably going to get replaced with something a little different because it's just a little in the way. But I just wanted something different than this one. So that'll probably change. So I'm kind of sorry for rambling on here. I didn't plan this out. Hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, I'll try to help you out with answers. But you know, just go look at the plumbing section of your Home Depot, Lowe's, or wherever your favorite hardware store is, and look around, because in all honesty, you don't need to do much of these to make them look like a lightsaber. And I was fortunate. I gave them to my son this morning, and he was very pleased with them. Wasn't sure what to expect, but he seemed genuinely surprised that I was able to build these. So they've had a few battles with them. They've held up really well, and like I said, they're cheap. This is $8. I think $3 or something for the O-rings. I got a whole bunch of them. This was a couple bucks for the heat shrink. a couple bucks for the pipe, about $3 for the blade. So you have, not a whole lot into them. You can do what you want with them. I'm probably repeating myself now because that's what I do. Yeah, those are my lightsabers. If you make any, let me know. Thanks.